Hello everyone and welcome to the weird, scary and horrible parts of humanity. Today we are looking into one of the most bizarre and strange aircraft hijackings you will probably ever hear of, the Korean Airlines YS-11 hijacking by North Korea. Korean Airlines, which since 1984 has been called Korean Air, was founded on the 1st of March 1969 and is the flag carrier of South Korea, as well as the largest airline in the country based on fleet size, international destinations and international flights. The flight departed Gyeong-suk Air Base in Gyeong-suk, Gangwon, South Korea, with 47 passengers and 4 crew aboard at 12:25 p.m. with the flight bound for Gimpo International Airport in Seoul, the capital of South Korea. At the time, the primary airport in Seoul. The tail number of the aircraft was HL5208. The flight was expected to last 70 minutes, and this compared to 11 hours by train or 8 to 9 hours by bus. The weather was good and the trip was likely to be uneventful. A member of the United States Air Force in South Korea, Dwayne R. Keenas, was scheduled to join the flight but instead caught a military transport flight at the last minute. The captain was 38-year-old Byrong-ha, pictured to the left, and the first officer was 37-year-old Cho Chang-hui, pictured to the right. Both lived in Seoul and had fought for South Korea in the Korean War. The two flight attendants were Gyeong-suk, pictured to the left, age 24, of Seoul, and 23-year-old Gyeong-hui, pictured to the right, who was also from Seoul. Both were graduates respectively of the Yonsei University and Ewha Women's University. Yonsei University is a private research university in Seoul, ranked by the QS University World Rankings 2022 as the 4th best university in South Korea, the 17th best university in Asia, and the 79th best university in the world. Ewha University is ranked 9th in South Korea by the QS University World Rankings 2022, 50th in Asia, and 331st in the world. 14 minutes after the plane took off from Gyeong-suk Air Base, one passenger, North Korean spy Cho Chang-hui, pictured, going under the name of Han Chang-gu, arose and entered the cockpit, forcing the pilots of the YS-11 to change direction. Cho Chang-hui was 42 years old and born in South Korea. He spent substantial time in the military as a sergeant in the South Korean army, and after being discharged aimlessly drifted throughout society. He was married multiple times. In the years leading up to 1969, he had few solid jobs and had a large amount of debt which resulted from his gambling habits. The aircraft crossed over into North Korea and was subsequently joined by 3 Korean People's Air Force fighter jets, the aviation military force of North Korea, which today has 110,000 active personnel and 950 aircraft. The aircraft landed at Sondok Airfield near Wonsan, a port city in North Korea and the 5th biggest city in the country, with the plane arriving at 1:17 p.m. The YS-11 had been damaged on landing at Sondok Airfield. The plane was subsequently sent to China for repair, but this was found to be too overwhelming. Returned to North Korea, the YS-11 was restored and utilised by a North Korean crew. However, its fate remains unknown and speculative at best, as it never flew for North Korea's national airline Air Koryo or the Korean People's Air Force. Passenger Dong-hae Choi said that he was awoken upon the plane's arrival on Sondok Airfield, and 20 to 30 North Korean soldiers were on Sondok Airfield awaiting the arrival of the YS-11 with M1 carbines surrounding the plane. A flight attendant told passengers that they were probably in North Korea, and older passengers burst out and cried. ID cards were taken away and North Korean soldiers began to cut them in half. The hijacker was taken off the plane and a male passenger would later allege that when the aircraft arrived at Sondok airfield, he looked out the window despite instructions not to from North Korean guards, and he saw the hijacker being driven away in a black sedan. Passengers were blindfolded by North Korean soldiers and forced to disembark. What happened to Cho Chang-hui remains unknown. However, it is believed that he was recruited in South Korea based on the fact that North Korean soldiers and jets of the Korean People's Air Force were awaiting the arrival of the YS-11. Passengers and crew were taken to Hamhung and housed in a regular hotel before being moved by train to Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea, and in turn were moved into a relatively luxurious local hotel. On the morning of the 13th of December, Pyongyang radio made their first official statement about the incident, claiming that the pilots had flown the YS-11 to North Korea in order to protest the policies of the then President of South Korea, Park Chung-hee, a highly controversial leader who ruled South Korea under a de facto military dictatorship from 1961 until 1963, and then as President of South Korea from the 17th of December 1963 until his assassination on the 26th of October 1979. South Korean authorities initially suspected that First Officer Seok-man had conspired with two North Korean agents, a doctor on board named Park In-yong, as well as Cho Chang-hui, in the hijacking of the aircraft. However, the allegations by Captain Byrong-ha and First Officer Seok-man on Pyongyang radio that they had flown the plane into North Korea of their own volition were rejected by South Korean authorities. Following the incident, the tail number of the YS-11 HL5208 was retired. Additionally, South Korea brought in new precautions which were pretty advanced for the 1960s, with pilots being armed guards in plain clothes on planes, and the doors to cockpits had to be locked at all times. The hijacking caused disbelief in South Korea and led to protests against North Korea. On the night of the 12th of December 1969, 100,000 South Koreans held a mass rally and protested the hijacking, burning an effigy of North Korean leader Kim Il-sung. The South Korean government requested the assistance of the International Federation of the Red Cross to assist them in getting the plane and the hostages back. The hijacking was condemned internationally. During their capture, passengers and crew were subjected to indoctrination of North Korean propaganda for up to 4 hours per day, and subjected to physical torture if they disobeyed, which included beatings and electrical shocks. They were also subjected to solitary confinement and intimidation, as well as forced press conferences. They were also taken on tours of Pyongyang in an attempt to showcase the greatness of the city. All of this was in an attempt to coerce them to stay in North Korea. On the 25th of December 1969, it was proposed by North Korea that talks would be held regarding the hijacked Korean Airlines flight. Following these talks, on the 14th of February at the Joint Security Area within the demilitarized zone between North Korea and South Korea, 39 passengers were released, of whom 6 were women and 33 were men. Pyongyang had only announced over Pyongyang radio that the passengers would be released 49 minutes prior to their release. It was during this period that the passengers' revelation of the plane being hijacked by Cho Chang-hui and the hijacker being driven away in a black sedan came to light. Upon their return, one passenger had become mentally deranged after 66 days of captivity and had lost their ability to speak. The passengers and crew forced to remain in North Korea were educated, mostly upper-class individuals. However, North Korea insisted that they chose to stay. However, the son of Hwang Won, who was one of the 11 individuals who remained in North Korea, Hwang In-chol, aged 2 at the time of his father's abduction, and one of 2 children when his father was abducted, alleged that the remaining 11 individuals were those who rejected North Korean ideology and insisted on being returned home. Passengers who returned to South Korea noted that they had not seen Hwang Won in the 2 weeks prior to their return to South Korea, as he accosted a North Korean official, telling them that all of the things that they were saying was wrong, for for which he was dragged out of a classroom and separated from the rest of the passengers and crew. Additionally, when Hwang Won was out drinking, he sang, "I want to go back to my hometown," and the passengers and crew never saw him again after this. In addition to the captain, first officer and 2 flight attendants, those held in Pyongyang were Yi Dong-gi, a member of a printing company based in Moyang, aged 49 at the time of the hijacking, 32-year-old Hwang Won of Gyeong-hui, who was the program director of Munhwa Broadcasting Corporation, a multimedia group in South Korea with 1 terrestrial television channel, 3 radio channels, 5 cable channels, 5 satellite channels, and 4 DMB channels. 27-year-old Kim Bong-ju of Gyeong-hui, who was a cameraman at Munhwa Broadcasting Corporation. 37-year-old Chae Hyun-deok of Gyeong-hui, who was a hospital director. 49-year-old office worker Im Chol-soo of Yanggu. Food industry businessman 40-year-old Jang Ki-yong from Yeongbuk, as well as 28-year-old Cho Chang-hui of Wonju, a Hankook State Company employee, which is a tire manufacturing company. Song Yong-in, who was formerly of the National Intelligence Service, the chief intelligence agency of South Korea, stated that the 11 individuals were probably retained by North Korea for their propaganda value. Indeed, they are 11 of over 500 South Korean citizens who have been abducted by and remain in North Korea. On the day that the 39 passengers were returned to South Korea, South Korea's Public Information Minister Shin Bum-sik demanded the release of the remaining 11 passengers and crew, as well as Cho Chang-hui as a South Korean citizen, the YS-11 and the cargo on board the plane. However, this would never come to pass, and exactly what happened to the 11 individuals, as well as Cho Chang-hui, and if they are even still alive, remains a great mystery and sketchy to this day. However, in South Korea, their families were destroyed and ripped apart. The mother of Hwang In-chul suffered from PTSD, paranoid personality disorder, and depression, and remains traumatized until this day. Without Hwang Won's income, the family went through significant financial difficulties. In 1992, Oh Kil-nam, a South Korean citizen, offered a job as an economist in North Korea, who defected voluntarily to North Korea, stated that while in North Korea he met flight attendants Gyeong-suk and Gyeong-hui, as well as Munhwa Broadcasting Corporation employees Won Kwang and Kim Bong-ju. Oh Kil-nam noted that the 4 were employed to make propaganda broadcasts to South Korea, with the 2 flight attendants announcers on the Voice of the National Salvation propaganda radio station. Oh Kil-nam also found out that the pilots, Captain Byrong-ha as well as First Officer Seok-man, were flying for the Korean People's Air Force. By the way, we will be looking in a future video at the story of Oh Kil-nam, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified of when that video comes out. Following the June 15th North-South Joint Declaration, family reunions took place between North and South Koreans, and during the 3rd reunion for the inter-Korean families on the 26th of February 2001, one of those families briefly reunited was Gyeong-hui and her mother, with the pair reunited after 32 years. She noted that she was still friends with Gyeong-suk, with the pair like sisters, and the pair lived in the same town. She also stated that she had a North Korean family, a son and a daughter, having married a professor at the Kim Chaek Technological College in Pyongyang. She also said that Captain Byrong-ha and First Officer Seok-man were living well in North Korea, and that they were living in the same suburb as Gyeong-suk. She did not know where the other abductees were, but said that they were all alive and well. In 2005, a smuggled database of Pyongyang phone numbers revealed that First Officer Cho Chang-hui was living in Pyongyang with his North Korean family, and reportedly working for a research centre associated with North Korean intelligence. In 2006, his family in South Korea applied for permission to meet him, but were told that he had died recently and had left a daughter. Families of the crew and passengers who remain in North Korea have been desperately fighting for their return. Hwang In-chol petitioned for assistance from the United Nations and the Korean Red Cross in 2006, having petitioned in 2006 of the North Korean government to provide information on the status of his father and if he is alive, but the North Korean government was unable to confirm if his father is dead or alive. Hwang In-chol formed a committee to pressure the South Korean government to do more to bring their loved ones home in 2008. The son of Lee Dong-gi, Lee Jong-myung, said at the inaugural meeting that his family had applied to meet his father at the reunion between North and South Korean families in 2005, but they had not received communication after Chuseok 2007, a Korean public holiday, and they were informed that his father's fate is unknown. In 2010, Hwang In-chol applied to the Working Group on Enforced or Involuntary Disappearances of the United Nations Human Rights Council to investigate the issue. In August 2011, the United Nations Working Group on Enforced or Involuntary Disappearances requested that the North Korean government confirm the fate of 3 abductees, even though the North Korean government had to confirm their fate by February 2013, this never came to pass. In November 2011, a campaign was held to pressure the South Korean government to put pressure on North Korea to return the abductees. In February 2012, Hwang In-chol filed a lawsuit against Cho Chang-hui. However, this did not come to anything. In 2013, Hwang Won tried to defect from North Korea but was captured. Everyone else who was caught trying to defect with him was executed. He was then moved in March 2016 to Ponson. On the 11th of February 2020, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights sent a letter to Pyongyang urging for the 11 abductees to be repatriated. Hwang In-chol noted that the families want to see their relatives in a third country besides China. However, the fate of these 11 individuals and Cho Chang-hui, and even if they are still alive, remains unknown, and will most likely never be known until the North Korean regime falls. Thank you for watching. Please do yourself a favour and hit that subscribe button and the bell icon to inform yourself of when new videos come out. Also, why not hit that like button and leave a nice comment? It helps more than you know and your support is truly appreciated. Until next time, stay awesome, stay classy, be kind to everyone you meet, have an amazing day, and remember that truth is always more interesting than fiction.